Joining me now is Democratic Congressman Mike Quigley of Illinois. He is a member of the House Appropriations and Intelligence Committees. He's also co-chair of the Congressional Ukraine Caucus. Welcome in, Congressman. Thanks for your time today. Now, presidents of both Ukraine and Russia gave New Year's speeches promising victory in their respective nations. Where do you put the war in Ukraine right now as we begin 2023? And what will be the key for any potential end to this conflict?
Look, if you had told me when this war began that Ukraine would have the victories they've had, I would have been thrilled. But I think there's also the realization that the Russians are trenched where they are, and they have the very real capabilities of an offensive, which I would think is still quite possible. So when President Zelensky spoke to Congress, I think his instructions, help us win quickly, are important, because this could become a war of attrition, something neither side can afford. I think diplomacy always plays a role. I think we're always welcome to that, but it has to be on Ukraine's terms. It's their country that's been invaded, and they have to be made whole.
This war of attrition seems to be here, and you're certainly right that both countries are capable of this, which would continue this stalemate. As Republicans can prepare to take control of the House this week, do you have any concerns that the change in leadership might affect how much the U.S. helps Ukraine?
Sure. It's one of the reasons we passed a $45 billion supplemental in the end-of-the-year spending package. It is to afford us to get through a very tough winter and all the things we just talked about, a counteroffensive and all the other problems of a war of attrition that comes to that. I still think the vast majority of Democrats favor supporting Ukraine to ultimate victory. I still believe the majority of Republicans feel the same way, clearly that Reagan branch of the Republican Party. I am concerned that Leader McCarthy would do just about anything to become Speaker McCarthy, and some of that would include trying to limit what we do to help Ukraine. I'm hoping that's not the case.
Let's turn now to the January 6th committee's final report and that latest batch of transcripts that was released this weekend from Trump's inner circle. How significant are these transcripts, and what impact do you think they might have on the former president?
Look, I think everything that the committee has done is commendable, and it has informed the Justice Department to a large extent. But I'll say this. I think in the final analysis, the fact that they did such an amazing job getting the truth to the American people will be their legacy. When I was part of an intelligence committee investigation into Russia's attack on our democracy and the first impeachment investigation, I never thought that the Senate was the jury. I thought it was the American people. And I think that the committee put together an extraordinary case that the President of the United States, Donald Trump, incited a violent coup that almost succeeded, and therefore he's unfit for public office in the future. The final analysis, that will be their legacy.
Okay, so if they have that as a legacy, who should be blamed, or should anyone be blamed if no charges are brought?
Look, at this point in time, it's on the Justice Department. I've never been able to predict accurately what they're going to do. I know that the Attorney General is a cautious beast and that he's handed this off to someone who's independent. I'm not going to guess that they're going to do something that isn't appropriate. I think they're going to do. I saw Adam Kinzinger's remarks earlier that he thought the president should be indicted, and that he probably will be. I would agree with him about President Trump.
Look, let's turn to Republican George Santos now. He'll be sworn in this week after being caught in a web of lies about his identity, his work history, among other things. Santos told City and State that he apologizes, quote, if anybody feels hurt or betrayed, and admitted to embellishing his resume. Federal prosecutors in New York are now investigating the congressman-elect. NBC News has reached out to Santos for comment and has not heard back. My question to you, Congressman, is what can and should be done in Congress if he is sworn in? Should he be kept off committees?
Well, first of all, let's talk about what we can't do. It's instructive to go back and read the Adam Clayton Powell Supreme Court decision. He can't be excluded because he meets the minimum requirements, those three requirements, to be seated. And once he's seated, he probably can't get kicked out for past offenses. That seemed to be that ruling. Can he be punished otherwise? I think that's probably up to House leadership. Given the razor-thin majority they have, I think that's unlikely. I think they'll act as if it never happened. And in the final analysis, it's going to be up to federal prosecutors or the people that elected him in 2 years removing him. But this, obviously, let's just remember, this wasn't an embellishment. An embellishment of a resume is you graduated cum laude instead of a 2.0 grade point average. This is lying about where you work. This is lying about your faith. This is lying about whether you even graduated. These are things that in any other job in the world, you'd get fired. Unfortunately, we don't have that option in Congress.
You know, I know a lot of people say, well, he was voted in, but I've heard from a lot of voters who say, well, it shouldn't even be a consideration that he was voted in because these votes were gained falsely. So that whole thing should be in question, a lot of viewers feel. I'm curious about your thoughts on Southwest Airlines and that whole debacle. Now, it is operating back to a normal schedule this weekend after facing thousands of cancellations, flight delays throughout the long holiday weekend. Now, thousands of customers are still searching for their lost luggage. They're waiting for that reimbursement for those canceled flights and other expenses. Now, Chicago is a huge travel hub. What responsibility does the airline have to its customers? And is there a role that Congress could play in ensuring that accountability?
Look, they have the ultimate responsibility at Southwest to take care of their customers. And Congress's primary role here first is to make sure those customers are made whole, not just for the cancellations, but for any reasonable expenses they have. Look, this was a massive storm. You can't control the weather, but no other airline melted down like this. It's painfully obvious that their management isn't up to the task, that their technology and their communication systems are antiquated. They have to be pressured to get that brought up to what's reasonable as quickly as possible. I understand the Senate's already talked about an inquiry beginning. The Department of Transportation does have a rule out there to strengthen the influence and abilities that customers have via cancellations. Representative Porter has a bill on this. So I think the House will join soon. There'll be inquiries and action taken soon by both House and Senate.
Democratic Congressman Mike Quigley of Illinois. Thank you so much, Congressman, for your time today, and a Happy New Year to you.